Everybody, welcome back to RippleLIVE. This is show number 4, where we talk about Final Cut Pro 10 and related topics. I'm Mark Spencer, coming to you from Mill Valley, California, and next to me is Steve Martin. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing great. It's raining here. I'm here in Arizona, and looking forward to bring you another great episode of tips, techniques, and workflow stuff.
Awesome.
So in terms of workflow and tips, the show format's really simple. Mark and I prepare a tip, and we show it to you, and we take your questions. And on occasion, we'll bring some specific news of the day into our discussion, or maybe it's an app we discovered. And I have a really cool app I'd like to show you later today. I think it's fantastic. So those kinds of things we'll inject into the stream. But it's really, the show is about you. It's about answering your questions. It's about helping you with whatever issues or creative things that you're working on. We have a chat window, so please use it. I see a lot of chats coming in right now. We'd appreciate it if there's a little button there, little $sign. Click it, and you can donate a nominal amount to help support the show. It's called Super Chat, and really appreciate that. Mark, anything else before we jump into our tip?
I don't think so. I think you should just go for it, because I know you've got some good stuff. We both have some really fun stuff to talk about today, and we're getting lots of questions already. So for all the Canadians and everybody around the world, we've got a great representatives from everywhere today watching the show, which is great. So Steve, why don't you dive in and let's get going.
Okay, so let's jump into Final Cut Pro. And I want to talk about compound clips, because there seems to be a lot of confusion about how they operate inside Final Cut Pro 10. And I have this simple project. I got 4 clips, and I want to turn this into a compound clip. But here's the thing that's a little confusing for people, because when you make a compound clip, I'm going to select those and hit Option G, and I'll just call this, just call this CC. Just keep the name short. So it's a compound clip. And the first thing when I go to the edge of the clip to trim it, there's no media handles. It's like, what the heck? Let me undo that. So what's going on here? By the way, one quick way to tell if you have media handles on a clip is I don't even know what it's called anymore, Mark. It's super trim window or super. You double click and it expands.
The trim edit window.
Yeah, whatever. What I like about this is that you open it up and you can... Precision editor, right. I mean, I use it so often I can remember the name of it. Anyway, what I like about it is you have handles. You can quickly see, and I press the down arrow, and I can go and I can really see how there's handles there, and it's great for checking that. And you're thinking,
yeah. So you've got tons of handles on both those clips.
Yes, exactly. I have tons of handles on both those clips. And so you're thinking, well, what's the deal? What happens? Why when I create a compound clip, I don't get any handles? I could say here, and no more handles. And you saw that they were there. So that leads you to actually go into the compound clip by double clicking, and then you can then expand the media handles here inside the compound clip. But that only works on one side, the tail. It doesn't work on the head. It used to work on the head. It doesn't work on the head anymore. Really.
So wait, Steve, can you just clarify, when you are trimming the head, you're actually not adding a handle, you're actually trimming the clip that you'll see back in the parent timeline.
That's right.
Is that correct?
But that's correct. And it didn't used to work like that. You could, I don't remember what version, 10.3 or something, you could have added handles at the head, but can't do that anymore. So, anyway, I thought I'd just point that out because it's kind of annoying. And so I'm going to undo the last few steps. It's annoying. So here's my workaround. And I don't credit myself for this. I give Alex 4D credit. Alex came up with this a few years back, and I think it's fantastic. So here's what you do to get the media handles. You're going to select an edit point, and I'm going to press Command T to add a cross dissolve. Now, it's a 1 second cross dissolve. So let's say I wanted 1 second handles on the compound clip on the head and 1 second handles on the tail of the compound clip. I'd want to change this. I'd want to select it, press Control D, type 2 period, return. Now I have a 2 second transition. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste that same transition at the tail. So I have 2 second transition here, 2 second transition here. Now I'll select the 2 clips between the transitions and I'll press Option G and I'll call this compound clip and I'll save it. Okay, now I have the compound clip. Now I'm going to go and delete these transitions. So what the transitions really did for me is they protected the handle media. Now I have a second's worth of handle media on this side of the edit, and I have a second's worth of handle media on this side of the edit. It's really the fastest way to create handles for your compound clip. So the thing is, just remember, if you want to create a compound clip, create the transitions, put them on, then create the compound clip, and you'll have plenty of handle material. It seems like a kind of a wonky workaround, but really, I found it to be the fastest way to do it. Okay, so
Steve, I love that. And there's actually a question kind of related to compound clips that maybe you can answer because you've got it set up there. We've got RK Bodapati asking why snapping doesn't work on compound clips, which is, I didn't know it didn't work on compound clips. So can you just demonstrate that actually, whether it does or not?
Okay, so snapping. All right. So I have to extrapolate what he might mean here, but I'm over the compound clip. I'm going to add a couple of markers. Okay. So what is snapping? It's this little feature over here that's on by default. It's the N key. And so when you're skimming, like the skimmer, like right now the skimmer snaps to the edit points. And I just turned it on. I'm over, but you can see it's snapping to the markers too. So notice the skimmer is turning yellow. It's in fact snapping. So I'm not sure exactly what he means, but
if you go inside the compound clip, snapping should still work on the clips within the compound clip, right?
See, yeah, I'm skimming, right? So by the way, I'm in the compound. Hey, look, you can see my 1 second handle media here and here. I should have opened that up, but there it is, right? But notice skimmer's on, snaps to the edit point, doesn't really snap to the end of the clip though. It doesn't. So if that's what he means, it doesn't snap to the out point when you're inside the compound clip. Okay, so
it doesn't snap to the out point. Interesting.
It's not. It's only snapping to the cut point and the playhead, and I'm assuming markers. If you place them in here, it'll snap to those. Yes, it does. So it looks like it's not snapping to the I and O, the in and outs. Okay, so that's my answer to the question. unless there's more information you want to provide, go ahead and put that in the chat. Okay, so you've been monitoring their questions there, Mark. All right.
I have. Yeah.
Okay.
There was a question about wondering how to color correct when a clip is too yellow. And Robin Kurtz jumped in and said, add green. And that could help. I was just trying to see if I could quickly bring up a sample of something that's too yellow, because I know I've got one. But I don't know if I'll get it soon enough here. Do you have our lab shot in the Quintessa project?
I do.
If you have,
I do. I have the let me see if I open that up here.
Because if you've got that right there, maybe you could keep sharing and show both white balance.
Let's see if I do. Yay. Hey, look at that. You mean like this shot here, Mark?
Right. Are you screen sharing right now?
Yeah, you go ahead and share my screen there, Travi. Yep. All right. So here's a clip that obviously has too much red in it, right? It's got too much, or you might even call it yellow, whatever you prefer. It's a tungsten tinge on the clip. Okay, I find when a clip like this, I'm always about speed. So the first thing I'll do is jump in and I'll throw on before I even get in the color board. I'll go into balance color and see how close I can get it, which looks pretty good. And then I'll jump back into the inspector, and there's these two methods, automatic and white balance. Now, automatic is Final Cut Pro's best guess as to what white is. So I prefer to use the white balance eyedropper, in which case I choose what I know to be white. And by the way, this is one of the reasons why professional DPs actually shoot with a color balance card at the head of a shot, because you know exactly what you're selecting. You know white is white. I have no idea whether that table is pure white or not, or that lab instrument is pure white. It's purely a guess. Anyway, that said, I'm going to assume that table is pure white, and if I select it, it balances a clip. And what you could do is go back between automatic, that's automatic, and that's with the eyedropper. You can toggle back and forth, and you can decide which one you like better. But that's one way to do it. I'll turn this off. The other way is I'll just turn that off. Of course, the other way is to go into the, I see some reason for doing it this way. You can go into the color board, or you could use color curves. I don't know what your preferred tool is for doing this, Mark, but like here I have a lot of reds in the white. In fact, if I'm going to do it manually, if you're going to do this manually, I think you really need to have the video scopes. And Mark's favorite.
Why don't you hide your browser?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And one of Mark's favorite tool, to be sure, is the RGB parade. And if you're going to do this sort of thing, you really need to see the parade, because you can see the distributions of the pixels. You see there's more red pixels than blue, right? So what's nice about this is then using the color board, you can attempt to, I'll just take the highlight puck and I'll move it into the reds, and I'll just start pulling down on the reds. And I mean, it's basically kind of a push-pull kind of a thing to get this where you want it. But you're pretty much using the scopes kind of as your guide here. The other way to do it, I guess you could use, did you use saturation curves, or excuse me?
Yeah, well, I would do what you did there. In fact, in our color correction tutorial, we go into detail in balancing an image, doing exactly what you're doing using color wheels to try to offset a color cast, which kind of the question was. But I thought you demonstrated it was great. Like, you try the automatic way first, and frequently you're done. That'll get you there. Option Command B and you're done. Right. Or maybe switch it to sampling the color. But then you can do it with the scopes like you're doing right now. Often maybe adding a couple different color correctors together to kind of get it where you want it to be.
Yeah, so I've removed a lot of the red, some of the red here. I might add another color board. It's not really nice that you could stack these things. So now, I'm so used to the color board. So you can actually stack these things. So like now I could start working on the blue. I could start pushing the blue, and that other color corrector is still there, right? So now I've got these evened out here, right? Because I have, if I jump back here, I have two color correctors. I've got two color board correctors. There's the one that dealt with the red and another one that dealt with the blue. And now you can see I've kind of got it balanced just using the parade scope. All right, so good question. And
excellent.
Yeah, very good question.
So I wanted to remind folks, we're getting a lot of questions, a lot of great questions. Hard to keep up. If you want to make sure you're, the one way to make sure we hit your question, we'll do the best we can to hit them. But if you click the little $ down there and make a nominal contribution besides supporting the show, it will also pin your question. It'll make it big and make it pop up there so we can really see it, and we'll tackle it. I did see one question about proxy media that I thought was worth talking a little bit about.
Yeah.
And so the question is, Abhine Hate says, does transcoding make us work on proxies? Will the edit quality differ if create proxy option is turned off? So if it's possible to share my screen there, I'd like to talk a little bit about, address a couple of, that brought up several things I'd like to try to address there.
You're on Skype, so you have to share your screen first there, buddy.
All right. Start screen sharing and let me know if it's up there.
Yep, we're up.
Okay, great. So the first question was, does transcoding make us work on proxies? So let's back up a minute. Transcoding doesn't necessarily mean proxies. When you transcode media, I'm going to select my event here and go to the File menu and choose Transcode Media. Transcoding means two different things. You can transcode, you can create optimized media, or you can create proxy media. Usually you'll create optimized media if you're working with footage that Final Cut doesn't handle really well, and often that can be some sort of H.264 footage or some interframe codec that can be difficult to manipulate. And by optimizing it, you're creating larger files, but files that play back much more smoothly in Final Cut. So that's why you might want to optimize the media. When you're creating proxy media, you're creating lower resolution versions of the media. It's basically quarter resolution. So for instance, if you have 4K media and you create proxies, those proxies will be 1080 or HD. They'll be a quarter resolution. And you may want to do that if you're doing things like multicam, where you're trying to play back multiple streams of 4K and you can't, so you create the proxies. So I wanted to distinguish between the two because sometimes you create optimized, sometimes you create proxy, sometimes both. I frequently tried not to do any of that. If you can work without doing any of it, don't do any of it. If you're doing multicam, you might create proxies. So that's sort of step one there. The second part of the question is, will the edit quality differ if create proxy option is turned off? And the answer is no, as long as you switch back to full quality before export. And here's what I mean by that. So I don't have proxies right now, but if I had created proxies, under the View pop-up menu right here at the top right, there's this option to switch to proxies. If I had created proxies, in order to actually use them and take advantage of that increased performance, you need to select it here in this pop-up menu. When I do that, you'll see it says it's offline because I don't actually have any proxy media right now. Okay, but if I did, you would see all that. My timeline would look the same. I can play, I can color correct, I can crop, I can punch in, do all this stuff, assuming it was 4K media. The only thing I need to make sure to do is before exporting, not before rendering, but before exporting, switch back to optimize/original. That's the key. Final Cut will automatically adjust any cropping you've done, any transformations you've done, in order to adjust for the difference in size and handle that behind the scenes. So it's actually quite easy to do, but the main thing is making sure that you switch it back after the fact.
All right. Excellent. All
and
right.
we got a contribution from somebody for $10. Thank you very, very much,
That was Matt.
Cooper.
Matt, in fact,
very much appreciated.
Yeah, Matt asked the question, how do you, if you stabilize let's talk about stabilization as a general concept for a moment. Final Cut Pro 10 has a built-in stabilization algorithm. And let's say you have a 10-minute clip and you're using maybe, I don't know, let's say you were using 30 seconds of it in your timeline. So let's say within that 30 seconds, 10 seconds in the middle is really jumbly or it's shaky, but the rest is okay. It's just that section in the middle. What you could do is blade that clip in where the shaky section is, and then you apply the stabilization just to that bladed section. And the reason it's important to note that is that when you apply stabilization, it only applies it to the portion of the clip that you're applying it to, right? It'll ignore the clip. It won't stabilize the entire clip, just that portion. But Matt's question specifically is, how do you blend? So you've stabilized that clip in the center, and of course the way the algorithm works, it has to correct for rotation, and correct for panning. It's sometimes scaling it. It's doing some stuff to hide the fact that it's stabilized, and usually that's cropped outside the window. And he's saying, well, then that's great. Well, how do then I blend that back in to the clips that don't have the stabilization? I think that's the essence of your question, Matt. I haven't done this in a while, but I'm wondering, in people who are out there have experienced this, feel free to chat this in. But one thing that I might do is put like a long dissolve, maybe just like a 2 or 3 second dissolve, so you're kind of easing them in from the stabilized to the more organic stabilized shots that don't need the stabilization. So you might do a transition there, a long one. I haven't tried it, but that's out of the top of my head, that's the first thing I would try. Again, if someone else want to chime in and has another option, please put it in there. But that's what I do, Matt. I try that first. Okay. So there was a question about room echo. I forget who asked it, so it was up earlier. But how do you deal with room echo? Look, if you have... Yes, I was just going to say, there's only one plugin worth having to deal with excessive noise, excessive echo. And remember, if you have problems in your audio that are pretty bad, there's no plugin that's going to remove anything. All these plugins are going to mitigate or lessen the effect of something. We found that the best tool, as Mark just mentioned, is iZotope, I-Z-O-T-O-P-E. And Travis will bring that up on the screen later, but we'll remind you, iZotope. And iZotope has a series of plugins. Gosh, I should, Mark.
RX Elements.
Yeah, we want Mark, if you bring it up on, bring it up on the webpage, and we can cut to your screen.
Yeah, I'll bring it up in a minute. I want to. There's actually another one too, because Crumple Pop makes the Remove Echo plugin, which is a cheaper solution that can work in some instances, which is worth trying. Because the thing about Crumple Pop's Remove Echo is it's a free trial, so you can try it out to see if it'll work for you.
Yeah. All right. So Isotope is what we recommend for dealing with things like that. All right. So there's some other questions here. James Christopher, thank you for that super chat. Really appreciate it. Okay, so there's some questions up here, a couple of them. Ridpath, Creative Partners, maybe a dumb question, but when sending to Compressor, how do I save an MP4 versus the default .mov? Okay, very good question. There's no way that I know to have it create a .mp4 extension. Everything Compressor does will create a .mov. And even an MP4 is simply just a container. It's like a suitcase, just like a .movie is. So I don't know if you know this or not, but you could spit out an MOV out of Compressor or even Final Cut and change the extension to .mp4, and that should solve your problem. There you go.
There you go.
All right. So here he says, Final Cut Online Coach. Why can I not change the role of a compound clip? And why do I not see the sub roll in the? And why do I not see the sub roll in the menu? Okay, I can deal with that question. Okay, so I'm gonna Command Control 1. Okay, so I have a sound editing library that I need to find. Here it is. Let me open up a clip here. All right. Okay, so the question was, it has to do with compound clips. So first of all, you're looking at my time. I know it's pretty complex here, but I have video, I have dialogue rolls, I have effects rolls, and I have music rolls. And by the way, I'm going to go into the roll timeline index here, and I'm going to click Show Audio Lanes. I've just freaking love this feature in Final Cut. No other NLE has that. With one click, you have instant, order out of chaos. I think that's fantastic. So the essence of Final Cut Pro Online Coach's question is that, okay, I want to change the role of this clip, and I right-click on it, and I choose audio rolls, and then I choose a roll here. So let's say, for whatever reason that's been mistagged, I can say, all right, make that one music roll, and now it's a music roll. Notice it actually moved down into that lane. So the question he has is, well, that works great, but now what if I compound clip this? What if I go, I'm going to compound clip this, option G, I'm going to just call this FX CC. And so now it's a compound clip. And I say, I want to change the roll. I go up here and I go assign, I can't change it. Okay, I can't change it. Okay, back on screen for Travi. Okay, here's the deal. There are two types of clips in Final Cut Pro 10. They're what we call, what I call primordial clips. What do I mean by primordial clips? Clips that aren't inside of a container. So any clip that you import from your camera, that came from a music library, that came from, that you drag and drop into the time, that's a primordial clip. Soon as you take that primordial clip and put it inside of a container, it's no longer a primordial clip. It's a container clip. Final Cut Pro does not allow you to assign roles to a container because technically it's not a clip. It's not a primordial clip. So the only way to deal with that is if you want to change the roles, then you have to go into the compound clip. So if I go back in here, if you want to cut to my screen, then if you want to change a role, I'm now inside the compound clip here. So now if I select these, and now you'll notice I can change them to whatever I want. So whatever, like forever, I want to change this to dialogue 3 for whatever reason. Or let's make this easy. Let's go into edit roles. I'm going to go into edit roles, and I'm going to add an audio roll. I'm just call this, I don't know, Steve, whatever. And I'm going to click apply. And now I have this. So now when I go in here, I go down, assign audio roles, Steve. Now look at that. I've all assigned them, but when I step back out to the compound clip, notice I was able to change the role. but they had to be changed inside the compound clip. You can't change them at the top level. That's just the way it works. Maybe you didn't want to hear that, but that's the explanation. All right, excellent question. All right, so
we have, yeah, before I want to say thank you to Seven Masscom for the contribution, very, very much appreciated. And we did have another question of somebody who contributed from David Mathis, who says, or Mattis, sorry if I got your name pronounced wrong, David. Do you recommend using Keyflow Pro to organize and tag media before importing into Final Cut? And Stevie may have another opinion on this. I haven't used it because I haven't needed to. I think in a larger organization, it may be more required with multiple people. I find I either organize directly inside Final Cut with keywords and smart collections, or I'll organize footage outside of Final Cut first using folders and Finder tags. You can apply Finder tags, and this is a great method actually for a producer or somebody who doesn't have Final Cut who wants to hand you a bunch of footage. They can take that footage and put it in folders and name those folders and apply Finder tags, color code them, and all of that metadata comes into Final Cut. So I've found the combination of either using the metadata that's embedded in the Finder with folders and Finder tags in combination with using keywords and smart collections and ratings in Final Cut is all I need to organize footage. There may be some other Keyflow Pro users out there. I've heard great things about the product. It's just something I haven't needed to use.
Okay, so one correction, and I do love these chats because one of the things I want to point out about Mark and I is that we are like we don't know absolutely everything about everything. We know a lot, but we just not. I mean, okay, I said earlier that Compressor only does MOVs, but a couple of you saying no, it can do MP4s. It's funny because I rarely use Compressor anymore. I just create presets and I do it all from Final Cut now, especially with the batch sharing. It's really easy, but thanks for that. So yeah, you can do MP4s, but if you don't, you could use my method of just changing the extension and you're good to go. All right. So thank you for that correction, Edgar Davis and Lon. Appreciate that. So Dave, if you have a complex audio question, best to use our support at rippletraining.com. There's only so much we can cover on the show, but we do answer those questions. Okay. Let's see. So there was a question way back that someone asked about, and it was way up in the chat stream about how to replace a PNG in a library that got corrupted. So you have let's say you have a PNG graphic in your timeline, and for whatever reason it's corrupt, but you've already color corrected, I guess, and it's corrupted. And you want to avoid having to re-import the ping, color correct it, and then replacing it. I think that's the essence of your question. I think, Mark, you did a Mac break way back when where, and normally we wouldn't recommend doing this, but, color correcting the PNG inside, make it the way you want in Photoshop, and then open the library and make sure it's the same name, drag it into the library, and once you close the library, then when you open Final, it should reconnect. It should reconnect to that PNG.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's what I do. So anyway, go ahead.
So see, Brian Siegmiller is asking, can you color correct 4K Proxy and have it carry over to the 4K high-res media? Brian, scroll back in the show later. It'll be bookmarked. I just described a little bit about Proxy and optimized media. If you're working in Proxy and color correct, as long as you switch back to optimized before you render, all your color corrections carry over to the high-res media. Absolutely. Not just color corrections, but anything else you do, like adding filters, adding transformations, cropping, pushing in, whatever, will all move over seamlessly. It's really a seamless process. It works great. Go ahead, Steve.
KB Burnfield asked about, will Steve be doing another presentation for LumaForge at NAB? Most likely not. I haven't been asked, and that's not because they don't like me, but because the getting starter thing, the getting, what does it call it? Faster together. Normally the guys would do that over 2 days, and there's a lot of presentations. Well, now they're doing it in one night, so they have to be very selective about who's going to present, and they just can't have everybody. and I'm imagining they're trying to get like really high profile people that are actually, they're making maybe movies or, doing HBO stuff. I have no idea. I'm just saying that there's only limited space. I'd love to do it again, but I definitely plan on being at the Faster Together event at NAB at the Rio. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And, hopefully I'll have some sort of a table or booth we can be showing you stuff. Anyway, so that's my answer to that.
Steve, should I do the motion blur?
Oh, yeah. Oh, Mark has a fantastic tip trick that he wants to show you. So we're gonna jump into motion.
Well, actually, we're going to start in Final Cut. So let me know if the screen sharing is up there. If good to go. Okay. So here's a little tip about creating motion blur, and you guys, if you guys watched an earlier episode of RippleLIVE, you will recognize this because we used this example when we were talking about collaborative editing. And I have this title over top of this clip here that flies in. And it looks great, but you'll notice there isn't really any motion blur on these letters as they're flying in at all. And I have this little guy on top, this little title template, and I'm going to enable it by tapping. It's disabled right now. I'm going to enable it by tapping the V key, and all of a sudden you'll see beautiful, beautiful motion blur on these letters as they come in. Now, if you are creating a template from scratch in Motion, you can add motion blur to your titles directly, but sometimes you're working with a third-party title or a plugin or something, and you have no way of accessing that motion blur. So I want to show you how you can create your own motion blur that will work on anything with an alpha channel. And by alpha channel, I mean transparency. Let me show you. I'm going to disable the clip beneath with the V key, and then I'm going to go up to the View menu and choose Alpha. And you can see the black areas are transparent here, so we have transparency, and that's what you need in order to create this this motion blur. So I wanted to show you how I created it and how you can do it as well. And what I did is I'm going to go to Motion here and Control Command F also. Oh, I can't do it quite yet in there. So in the Motion project, I'm in the project browser. I'm going to create a new title project. And I'm going to create one at 4K. It doesn't really matter too much here, but I'm just going to start with the highest resolution. I'm going to make it 10 seconds long by default and open it up. So it's a new title project. And now let me just go full screen. There we go. So I've got a new title project. And the first thing I'm going to do is select that title and delete it. Because even though this is a title project, I'm not using it for that. And by the way, this is just another tip. Motion is so useful for creating little great things for Final Cut without even knowing how to use it to create motion graphics. We did an earlier thing about an adjustment layer, so this is the same kind of idea. Okay, I turned off the title. The next thing I'm going to do is select the project and go to the inspector and then go to the properties tab of the inspector. And right down near the bottom here we have motion blur, samples, and shutter angle. Now I'm going to crank up. I've done a variety of experimenting, and I'm going to crank this up to 32 samples. And I'm going to crank up the shutter angle to 720. Okay, just as an example. So now I have an empty motion title project that has motion blur. Now, there's a really important step to make sure this will work right. There's actually two of them. The first thing is to go to the render pop-up menu at the top right and enable motion blur. If you don't do that, this whole thing won't work. So you need to enable motion blur. So you can see it's checked there now. And then one other thing we need to do is if you change the duration of this title in Final Cut, the motion blur samples will stretch or compress, and it won't look correct. So what I'm going to do is move my playhead to the end, the last frame there, Shift M for a project marker, double click it to open up that marker. It's not wanting to open up. It's because it's past the last frame. It's past the last frame. So I'm going to change that marker to a project loop end marker. And that's a really useful marker for any kind of graphic or anything you're creating where you want it to stay the same speed when it's trimmed in Final Cut. Okay, so those two things are necessary. Command S to save. I would save it in the custom category and give it a name, and then publish it. I'm not going to because, sorry, I've lost my headphone there here. I've already done so. So let's go back to Final Cut, and I'll show you in my titles browser. I've created multiple versions of this template because it's so fast to do, and each one has a different sample rate and shutter angle. So the samples is how many samples are created of the motion blur. And the more the better, but the more you do, the more processing it takes. So you don't want to create too many. And then the shutter angle is basically how much the blur is smeared out over the course of the frames. And a greater shutter angle means it'll be smeared out much more. The version I have placed down in my timeline, you can see says 32-1800. So it's 32 samples, and it's spread over a shutter angle of much more than even 360. It's basically the biggest shutter angle you can possibly get in motion, but it creates this really beautiful spread here. If I go to something like, let's say, 16-1800, I just want to show you the difference, and I'll drag this on here and choose Replace from Start. You can start to see with 16 samples, I don't know how well you can see here, but you start to see the individual repeats of some of these letters with 16 samples, because those 16 samples are being spread out over this very wide shutter angle. So the bigger the shutter angle, the more samples you want. So I've created a variety of different versions for different applications. I find for the animated text that this 32-1800 works the best. So I'll put it in there and put that back on. And just another example where I've rendered it. Here's an example here where I've rendered it, and I'll just create a range and play that. And you can see what that motion blur looks like on that text animating in. So it really adds a really much more professional, beautiful look to animated objects that have an alpha channel. And by the way, you don't have to have motion. You have to have motion to make this template, but you don't have to have motion to use it in Final Cut. If anybody's made it for you, you can just put it in there and it works. So fast and easy thing to do, and an easy way to create motion blur for any kind of animation that has an alpha channel. And some people might ask, I'm sorry, I have to mention one more thing, like, well, can I use it just on straight video? Yes, it'll work on regular video, but not great. It's really not meant to be used that way. So it does work. I find it doesn't work as well as it does on things like animating objects in Final Cut with keyframes or using it on text animation. So that's it. I will exit my screen sharing there and see what we've got here. Steve, I don't know if you've read any questions while I was going over that tip.
Yes. By the way, I was looking to show them something, and had to do with your product. We are running if you're interested in more of this stuff, we have this, Mark has this amazing product on our website called Warp Speed Motion. And it's like all of the things that you want to know how to do as an editor with motion. Like that's just one thing he showed you, but there's so much stuff that you can do inside Motion if you are a editor. Maybe you're not interested in like learning the entire app, but just what you can do with it, like how to publish titles and templates, and how to rig widgets if you want to make your own plugins, how to use the Photoshop files, particles, custom effects, background animations, replacing screens. I'm telling you, this product is a treasure trove of useful information if you want to like get your head around Motion. And right now, we are offering it for 40% off, and because it's Valentine's Day, Travis, bring up the code. It's Motion-Love, Motion-Love, and it's 24 hours. You can go up there and you can order it. I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed. You'll learn a bunch of really cool stuff that you can do in Motion. All right. Okay.
Thank
thanks,
you, Final
Peter.
Fest, for the contribution, and thank you, Brian Siegmiller, also, and Doug Orr. Wow, thank you.
Yep.
And RidPath.
Yes, RidPath. Speaking of RidPath, since he did throw in a super chat, I'm obliged to answer his question here. So the question was setting up presets was his question. So let's say, I just went to a simple timeline. So to create a compressor preset, you just go up to the File menu and you go down to share, and then you go to add destination. So you add a destination. So I'm in the destination window, and it's here, compressor settings. You just drag this into, well, wherever you want it to appear in terms of your menu hierarchy. I'm going to go ahead and put this up here so I can find it. Oops. And now it's asking me, all right, well, what preset do you want? So then you would choose a preset. And then, by the way, there's built-in ones here. Now, see, what I want to do is, what's interesting. Probably what I want to do this, I probably did this out of order. Probably want to create the preset in Compressor first. In Compressor, and then it saves it in the custom group. And then you go ahead and you choose your custom. Oh boy, here's some other presets. Here's some MXF presets and whatnot. So what you would want to do is go into Compressor, create your MP4 preset, and then choose it here. So you would then choose that preset. Here's one called iMovie Watermark. I'll go ahead and click OK. And now that preset will show up into the share menu. So if I click in here and I go to File, Share, let's see, here it is. I can't find it. Got a lot of stuff. Oh yeah, there it is. See, iMovie Watermark. So that would be the preset that I created in Compressor and shared to Final Cut. So I would never have to. I'd never have to jump into Compressor at all. I have a bunch of presets right there that can be accessed within Final Cut Pro 10. There is one advantage. There's actually a few advantages of using Compressor, and my guys will tell you this, that one of the reasons they like Compressor is that you can quit Compressor. Once you start a batch and starts encoding a bunch of things, you can literally quit it, and it's still churning around in the background. You can keep editing in Final Cut. Once you share in Final Cut, it pretty much locks Final Cut Pro down until it's done sharing. So I don't want to say don't use Compressor. There are times when it's like, I have a bunch of stuff to compress, send it over to Compressor, use the presets there, let it do its thing. You can quit Compressor if you want, jump back to Final Cut and keep editing. So that's my 2 cents for that. Okay.
I want to address a couple things. First, Edgar, thank you. He says, thanks for the new Fusion tutorial. So he's checking that out. So we have a new tutorial about how to use the Fusion page in Resolve that we're getting a lot of great comments on. So if you're sort of into that, like you're already using Resolve for color correction or editing and interested in how to do nodal compositing, you might want to check that out. Mark, does the warp speed motion tutorial include what you just explained about motion blur? It's sure. Is it in that one, or is it warp speed for Final Cut Pro editors? Is that the one you were just talking about? So, Phil, I believe so. Look at the website. It's got the whole table of contents. I just can't remember now because there's multiple motion tutorials. And if it doesn't, I'll send you what we'll probably do is take the best template that we made today and just zip it and post it for you guys. Like, make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter, and we'll just send you a link to it. Without an installer, we'll just zip it, and here it is. You throw it in the titles browser, and you're good to go. I'll give you the one that I think works the best. So if you don't have motion, don't want to create it yourself, we'll just give it to you guys. So look for that. We'll just make it easy for you. There was another question from Peter Downing who said, I create text effects in motion for Final Cut Pro 10. Awesome, glad you're doing that. In one generator, I need to track editable text to a moving photo. Looks great in motion. When I create the generator in Final Cut Pro 10, I lose the match move. That is true. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can't take a matched move thing from motion and have it work in Final Cut. That's, in terms of the integration, that's one thing that just does not work. And that's why there are match moving tracking tools, third-party tools for tracking directly in Final Cut, like TrackX and SliceX, and there's a few others as well that allow you to do that. So either use one of those third-party tools, or from motion, you render out your track. I know what you're trying to do. I would love to do that too, have editable text in Final Cut that you change to edit and it keeps tracking all the time. But you're going to lose the match move. I'm sorry, just the way it is. I wish there were a better answer for that for you.
Remember last episode 3, I told everyone to go up and use the feedback, please.
Yeah.
Look, Apple, please give us a tracker. Apple, please give us a tracker.
Hey, Steve, here's one
Yeah.
Steve, you could show this. This is a Scott Marvel asks, is there a quick way to lower audio levels across multiple clips in the timeline? It's this.
Yeah. Yes, there is. I'm just looking. There was a question I wanted to ask that was like pretty quick.
Oh, sorry.
Let's see here. P Weeks 123 asked about loudness meter in Final Cut Pro 10. Since we're talking about audio, yes, that would be what's called a LUFS meter. LUFS, LUFS, loudness units, I guess, and there is no LUFS meter in Final Cut. You have pretty much a peak meter, and you don't even really have an RMS meter. RMS standing for root mean squared, right? We're getting all math geeky here, but root mean squared or RMS would give you average, but Final Cut's VU meters are just peak. Mark,
Yeah.
are you aware of any LUFS meter plugin for Final Cut?
Yeah, I can't. I'll try to find it. There is a plugin that does LUFS. I think somebody will probably pop in, especially from the UK, will pop in pretty quick, or Europe, and address that. I can do another quick one here. Can Final Cut Pro handle Ambisonic audio for 360 edits? No.
Oh.
And we really want it to. It's very annoying. So please go to Final Cut Pro feedback under the Final Cut Pro menu in Final Cut. Send feedback. Would love to have Ambisonic audio support for 360 video in Final Cut.
Okay, well, my guys, wait, before we go, this is what I love about the show, because Spencer back here was telling me that Logic does have a LUFS meter built into it. And he says that LUFS meter can be accessed within Final Cut Pro 10 in one of the plugins. So I haven't tried that. I haven't even looked for it. So let's cut to my screen really quick, because now I'm really curious. So let's go into here.
I look for it as well.
You look for it as well. I'm going to go into. I love this stuff. Okay, so audio all. Let's type in loud.
It won't work if you type in LUFS, but
it might be in their compressor.
It might be in compressor.
It's going to be in levels.
It'll be under levels. So you have limiter, adaptive compressor, enveloper, expender, limiter, gain, spectral gate, sound compressor. I don't see a LUFS meter here.
It's a subset of one of the other.
And he said, Spencer's saying it's a subset of one of these. So I'll have to go back and look again, but maybe it's AU peak limiter. Let's throw that up. I don't have any audio to even try it on. Anyway, I don't want to waste a bunch of showtime looking for that. He says it's in there. Now I'm on a mission after this to find it.
Maybe we'll do a demo on it next show.
Yeah, maybe
it's
we
the
demo it next
multimeter. So somebody just said it's the multimeter in Final Cut Pro 10 has LUFS. The multimeter.
The multimeter. Okay, perfect. It's not the So if you type in multimeter,
there's a multi-channel. There's a multi-presser. Maybe that's what they mean.
Multi-channel gain.
Click all for category.
Yeah. So all. Yeah. Multimeter. There it is, right there.
Multimeter.
All
there
right.
it is. Yeah.
So I should
throw
be able to.
it.
I'm gonna see if I have bring up my audio here. So it's the multimeter on there, and let's see here. Go into audio. Bring up.
Yeah, there it is. Sure is. Bring it up, baby. It's there.
There is the multimeter. And then there it is. So, LUFS. Get some LUFS on this love day. LUFS on this love day. Okay.
Hey, Tony, thanks for answering Scott's question. That's a fast way without demoing. Just for adjusting the audio level, just select them all, Control plus or minus. We'll go a decibel at a time to adjust them all.
It looks like it has an RMS too. You have a root mean squared RMS level here too. And there's peak, true peak, RMS. Boy, this thing, why didn't I know about this thing? This is crazy. This is fantastic. All right, I'm gonna have to play with that a little bit more. All right, cool, awesome. So there was another question. Let's see.
Somebody asked a question about effects not showing up when sending a project to Compressor.
I guess someone asked a question about sending a project to Compressor with effects and then those effects not coming across. Bryce. Has anyone seen any effect not show up? Bryce Bagwell. Anyone seen any effect not show up when you send the export to Compressor straight from FCP 10? I have heard of Premiere doing that, when sending to media encoder. Well, I'll go back to what I said earlier. It's like I don't use Compressor as much as Final Cut, and so I'd have to test it. But I've never had it not send an effect across. It's possible, but I haven't experienced it. Okay.
We've experienced it with titles, and
Titles.
we've exported it out ProRes from Final Cut to make it, and then send
Okay.
it
Travis here, my editor, is saying that he has experienced it with titles sometimes, and titles not going across to Compressor, in which case he's had to bake the titles into the video before it works. So it is possible, certain scenarios, and there, you just heard one. In terms of other ones, I'm not sure. Okay, so anyway, it's wow, it's 11:50. I wanted to show this really cool plugin really quick, Mark, and I also wanted to
Please.
Yeah, I want to show this really cool plugin. So I'm gonna I don't know. We actually have a B cam in the room today. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch to the B cam. Here we go. This now. I have Spencer right behind me. He has a Blackmagic. Hey Spencer. he has a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera that he's pointing at me right now. And you want to just pan around. You just want to see how many monitors it takes to do the show. We have a laptop. We have, a cinema display. We have an iMac, and I have an iPad. And there's a lot of screens to do the show. And then I have the Blackmagic presenter down here, and I have this amazing app that I discovered yesterday because I needed another screen to look at your chats. And there's this app that's on the Mac. The iOS App Store. It's called Duet. A lot of you may already know about it, but those of you who don't are going to freak out because it turns your iPad or your iPhone into a second display over Lightning cable, and there's no lag. Did you hear me? No lag. It's freaking amazing. And it's right now it's $9.95. It's 50% off. And I'll bring up the webpage in a moment. But check this out. In Final Cut, I'm in Final Cut. I'm gonna send my Final Cut browser over to my iPad. I'm gonna go over here and say let's see where it's show and secondary display browser. Now I have my browser on my iPad. I have all my clips. By the way, it's touch sensitive, so I can use my finger to scroll, to select clips. It's a secondary display. I can make selections, and then over here on my main Mac display, I just have the my viewer, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the video scopes. But there it is. I got a very simplified display now because now my browser is being put over here. So look, if I'm traveling, it's fantastic. I bring my iPad and my laptop, and I'm good. I've got more real estate. It's fantastic. So let me show you where this is here. If I jump out to Final Cut, let's see here, jump out to here. It is Duet. It's called Duet Display. It's $9.99 on the iOS store. If you want to read about it, you can go to duetdisplay.com, and you could read up about it. By the way, it works for Mac and PC. If you need so it works with Mac and PC. So if you need an extra display for your PC, you can use it that way as well. It's pretty cool. All right, so that's my Steve app of the week. Definitely want to check that out, especially at its price point. All right, cool. All right, so we're back to ask a few more questions. It's we have about 6 minutes left. And,
Steve, I can try to tackle a couple of them, try to answer a few here. So Kema Bazan, and Kema or Chema, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, says, any news about a forthcoming solution for collaboration in Final Cut Pro 10, even for non-simultaneous editors? So far, the solutions that exist are quite cumbersome or expensive for small businesses. So 2 comments on that. Number 1 is nobody knows what Apple's doing, or another way to say that is people who know don't say, and people who say don't know. So we can never comment on like, and anybody who can, isn't, you can't listen to what they're saying. So nobody knows what's going to come next unless Apple says something about it. They've recently taken some steps to sometimes telescope a little bit of what they're doing.
Telegraph.
But anyway,
Telegraph.
Telegraph. Thank you. Telegraph, not telescope. You might, Kemma, you might want to look at our last, it was either RippleLIVE 3 or 2, where we did a whole collaborative editing session that explained how you can do collaborative editing quite easily once you each have the same media, and you just send a transfer library back and forth. A lot of people are collaborative editing of Final Cut Pro 10 pretty simply. We'd like to know a little bit more about what you're finding to be cumbersome or expensive, but it depends how complex you're talking about. So I just wanted to try to address that there are solutions. We've got a whole piece that talks about how to use transfer libraries. And if something's coming, we don't know. We'll find out when it gets there. There was also a question about like locking tracks or something. Like, well, there are no tracks. What's the best way to lock the video track? Well, there's no track, so there's nothing to lock in Final Cut.
Exactly.
A function much needed. I guess I would ask, why would you need to lock a video track or a video clip, or if you want to lock the whole video? I mean, if you're done with that edit, save that edit and work on a new version if you don't want to change that at all. But that's true. There's no way to sort of lock, so you can't change, you can't swap clips or something in there. There's no function. I could see where you might want to have something like, hey, this edit cannot be changed, and you try to and you can't. I don't know of any way that's possible. I just try to label my edits appropriately. So don't know if that answers that or not. How is the tutorial on Final Cut Pro 10 audio plugins coming? That's from a West Coast Fencing Archive.
So we're working on 2 app extensions now. One is like
app extensions.
Yeah, 2 of them, little short app extensions that'll work inside Final Cut. One that will teach you like how all the audio plugins work in Final Cut Pro 10. We might want to look at that LUFS meter now. Anyway, and then I'm doing one on editing with. I'm covering all of the like how to work faster with different media types in Final Cut Pro 10. So it'll be a little short. I forgot how to, I don't know, work with connected storylines, and you'll be able to jump in there, and there'll be a little movie, and then how to show you how to deal it. It's not, they're not. These movies are not designed to replace our longer ones. They're just more like little help movies that you'll be able to jump in and like get the information you need, and then keep working. So. Excellent.
One other, I know we're just about out of time. I'll try to address a couple ones that are out there. Is there a way to add textures to objects in Motion 5 the same way you do with text? And that question is from Avant Multimedia. Short answer is no, there's not. Text is a unique, 3D text in Motion is a unique separate universe where you can add, it's fantastic. The texturing of 3D text, first of all, is freaking amazing in Motion and in Final Cut. Everything you can do with text and texturing text, 3D text in Motion, you can do directly in Final Cut Pro. If you didn't already know that, you want to check that out. I have a whole tutorial about that, by the way. But you can't do the same thing to other objects in Motion. Motion's not, it's like a 2.5D program for the most part, similar to After Effects in that regard. So it's not a true 3D environment where you're adding textures. Now, you could look at a plugin like M-Object from Motion VFX. Allows you to do texturing of objects within Motion, within Final Cut as well. So if you want to do that, check out M-Object. What else we got? I think...
Chima, thanks for your...
That's it. If there's something new... Oh, Chima, thank you very much. My wife walked in and gave me a hard time for spending more time with you guys than her on Valentine's Day so far.
That's great.
Hey, take care of business there, Casey. All right. Hey, it looks like it's time. Do we want to mention? So you want to mention that promo code Motion Love? Is it?
Yes. If you want to get Mark's tutorial on warp speed motion, it's called Motion Love, and Travis will bring it up there. It's on the screen. There's a couple of other last minute things. Next week we're going to be taking a break. Mark and I will be in Los Angeles, actually. Mark has become certified in Blackmagic's Fusion. He's going to be certified in Fusion. It's crazy. Anyway, so we'll be in Los Angeles trying to get our heads around like nodal compositing anyway, that's what we'll be. So the week after, we'll pick it up again. Make sure you subscribe, click the little bell to be reminded of when we're going to do this. And please tell us in the comments what you'd like to see in future episodes. This is an entirely user-driven show. We want to hear from you. And obviously, if we said something that needed correction or maybe clarification or amplification, please put that in there as well, and we'll respond to those. We monitor our YouTube channel. We monitor it very closely. So it's just a way for us to stay in conversation with you about Final Cut Pro 10 and related applications.
And I will say we'll try to keep, there's a few questions in here that I'll try to answer after we end the video feed. So feel free to keep chatting a little bit, and we'll try to answer a couple questions by text only when we sign off, which we need to do now.
Yep. So happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I love you.
Thank you very much for watching, and look for us back on RippleLIVE number 5 in 2 weeks. And look for it. We'll have a fun tutorial next week, by the way, so stay tuned for that. Take care.
Take care.